History teacher Lee Everett is on his way to prison, having been convicted for killing a state senator who had slept with his wife. The police officer mocks and small talks to Lee about his crime and future life in prison. While leaving Atlanta for prison, we see helicopters and military vehicles rushing to Atlanta City for some reason. The police officer, being occupied and talking, runs over a walker and crashes off the highway. A while later, Lee wakes up and sees the police officer motionless across the wrecked car. He gets out of the car, his leg hurt, and moves to the police officer to retrieve the key for his handcuffs. Out of nowhere, the police officer comes back to life and tries to bite Lee, but Lee quickly arms himself with the shotgun and shoots the undead. Due to the shotgun noise, many walkers get near Lee. As he limps, he is able to outrun them to the other side of the fence. There might be many, but they lack the agility to climb surfaces. Lee then enters the house where he finds a walkie-talkie. Through that, he hears from Clementine, who is hiding in a treehouse. Before meeting her, the maid of the house attacks Lee and almost bites him, but Clementine saves him by giving him a hammer. They talk, and Lee decides to take Clementine and protect her in this situation until they can find safety. Outside, they meet Sean Green, and his car is stuck in the pile of other cars, so Lee helps him, which causes a car alarm and alerts many walkers to their presence. They quickly move forward and get into the truck with Sean to escape. Sean takes Lee and Clementine home to Sean's family farm, owned by his father, Herschel Green. Herschel, being generous, gives Lee and Clementine the barn to sleep in for the night while the situation gets better. Lee meets a family consisting of a husband and wife, Kenny and Katja, and their young son, Duck. Everything looks fine until in the morning, a tragedy hits when Sean's legs get caught by a truck which was accidentally turned on by Duck. This causes walkers to overwhelm Sean, while Duck is almost eaten. After failing to save Sean from walkers, Lee, Clementine, and Kenny's family are banished from the farm and threatened. The group heads to Macon, Georgia, where they face a horde, which they quickly get saved from by another group of survivors led by a woman named Lily, who saves them from a herd of walkers. Lily's group is situated in a drugstore which Lee's parents owned. A huge argument happens where Lily's father accuses Duck of being bitten and thus he should be banished. Kenny understandably confronts him. After many arguments, Lily's father gets a heart attack afterward and requires medication from a nearby pharmacy. Another member of the group, Glenn Rhee, decides to salvage for supplies in a motel. However, he is stranded in the motel. Lily tasks Lee to help him, and another reporter joins him in this mission to save him. Glenn then decides to help a stranded survivor named Irene. Since there are many walkers, they decide to go stealth and use the environment for their benefit, including a car, an axe, and basic physics. However, Irene is revealed to be bitten and commits suicide upon taking Carly's gun. Upon returning to the drugstore, Lee comes to the conclusion that his parents were killed by walkers. Carly tells Lee that she knows Lee's past but keeps his secret. Lee and an IT technician, Doug, head out to find the keys of the pharmacy since Lily's father doesn't look too good. They find the key near a pharmacist who turns out to be Lee's younger brother. In order to reach him, they must first clear the horde right in front of them. So Doug comes up with a plan to use a remote to turn on the TVs in the TV store and then use the sound of white noise from the TVs to distract the zombies, and it works. Although not all walkers notice it. So, for it to work, Lee throws a brick, dividing the TV from outside. Once done, Lee is forced to kill his reanimated brother to retrieve the keys. Upon entering the pharmacy, the alarm sounds, forcing the group to barricade before the horde overwhelms them. A huge horde takes over the store. Upon leaving, Lee saves either Carly or Doug from walkers, but the other dies. He is then knocked down by Larry. Lee is rescued by Kenny because Lee stood with Duck against Lily's father, and the group heads to the motel for shelter. There, upon hearing that Atlanta is overrun by walkers, Glenn leaves the group and heads for the city to rescue his friends left behind. Despite finding comfortable shelter and water, the group's glimpse of hope is short-lived when electricity is suddenly shut off. The group has survived 3 months at the motel, but food is scarce, and their explorations of nearby facilities have yielded little. Lee and Mark, the new survivor, decide to go hunting, but soon they hear screams. They rush to the site for help, where they see a teacher with 2 students. The teacher is caught in a bear trap, and his screams attract walkers to the place. Lee tries to help him while Mark and Kenny cover him with their sniper shots, which again causes more noise. Lee tries to use a rock and an axe to break the chain, but to no avail. So, he decides to chop off the stuck leg, although the teacher didn't want to. They carry the teacher since he passes out, but before leaving, Thomas, one of the students, is grabbed and eaten alive by the walkers. Later, they go back to the camp and try to help the teacher, but with no avail since he lost a lot of blood already. Ben reveals that being bitten is not the only way one can become a walker. Simply the act of dying can cause one to turn, which is exactly what happens as the teacher reanimates and tries to attack Catherine, but Lee intervenes. Days pass, and food becomes scarce. They start going far and wide for supplies and food until they see 2 brothers, Andrew St. John and Danny St. John, from a nearby dairy farm offer food and shelter in exchange for gasoline for their generators that power their electric fence. The group accepts, though they remain uneasy about them. While there, Mark is hit by a crossbow arrow from a group of bandits attacking the farm, and Brenda, the brother's mother, takes him into the house for medical treatment. Lee goes with Danny to find the bandit camp but instead come across a crazed woman named Jolene, who appears to know something about the farm but is killed before she reveals it. Still uneasy about the farm, Lee and Kenny discover a butchering room in the back of the barn before they are called for dinner. One of the brothers comes in and persuades Lee that the butcher house is only used for animals such as cows. Kenny finally stops worrying about it and tells Lee to just enjoy what they have there. During dinner, Lee excuses himself to look for Mark. He checks every room but does not see him anywhere. He soon finds a secret door and, once he opens it, he finds Mark near death, his legs cut off. The meat for today is his meat. He warns the others that the St. Johns practice cannibalism, but before anyone can do anything, the family overpowers and separates them. They soon find themselves in the butcher's freezer. Larry suffers a heart attack again in an argument, but before Lily can administer CPR, Kenny smashes his head with a brick in fear of his return as a big walker. This event causes a huge consequence against Lily and Kenny. Realizing it is too late for Larry and fearing being trapped with a walker, Clementine helps their escape, and they get out of the freezer. There they face the 2 brothers. The first brother is easily dismantled, and the mother is being eaten by Mark, who at that time already turned since the family on the farm didn't know about the turning of humans once they die. They quickly rescue the rest of the group from the St. Johns. Finally, the big brother takes Duck hostage. Kenny tries to intervene but gets shot, while Carly shoots back at him, dismantling him for a minute. This is a time where Lee starts hand-to-hand combat. Although stronger for his size, Lee is able to push him into the electric lines. They leave them to their fate as the electric generators go out and walkers invade the farm. On the way back, the group finds an abandoned car with food and other supplies, including batteries. Lee watches the video from Jolene's player and finds she had been watching the motel, knowing that the group was safe as long as the St. Johns maintained their deal with the bandits. Without the St. Johns, the bandits have turned their attention to the motel, and Kenny expresses an urge to move on using an RV he has fixed up. Through Lily, Lee discovers someone has been slipping the bandits' medical supplies. But before he can determine the culprit, the bandits attack.
Oh shit!
Get back there! Smoke him out! We gotta get out of here!
No shit!
Get those bastards! Cover our people and get them to the RV!
Go around, shit, the brains. He's back there.
Now! Get over here! Hurry!
Man, you saved our lives.
Get inside!
Help!
Katja, hang on!
Where is he? He's hiding behind that van. Get your asses around.
Katja, hurry! Come on! Clem, get inside the RV! It's gonna be okay! Go!
Oh, Christ!
Lily, get in the RV!
Screw her! Let her stay!
The altercation causes Duck to be bitten by the incoming walkers. One by one, the group enters the RV and flees, forced to leave most of their supplies behind. Katja quietly reports to Lee that Duck has been bitten by a walker. Lily, furious over the theft, accuses others of the theft and demands they deal with the issue now. Her rambunctious accusations agitate the group. Carly, defying Lily, makes her shoot Carly dead. Angered, Lee leaves Lily behind, who eventually gets overwhelmed by walkers. They find the road ahead blocked by a locomotive and a homeless survivor named Chuck, with whom they bond. Lee and Kenny look at how to move the train. Eventually, they find the train still in usable shape and head towards Savannah, where Kenny assures them they can find a boat to flee the mainland. En route, Duck's condition worsens, and Lee convinces Kenny to stop the train to deal with him. Katja and Kenny take Duck out into a forest to shoot him, but Katja commits suicide. Kenny, faced with losing the two of his beloved, breaks down while he is forced to shoot Duck. After a brief mourning, they continue the train towards Savannah, although Kenny seems not to be himself anymore. Later, gripped by guilt over Carly's death, Ben reveals that he was the one who had been slipping the bandits' supplies, which horrifies Lee. At this time, Lee decides to teach Clementine how to survive. First, he tells her to keep her hair short so that no walker can grab it, then he gives her shooting target practice. They eventually encounter a bridge with a tanker car containing flammable fuel hanging off and must dismount to remove the obstacle. The group encounters a dating couple, Omid and Krista, who decide to help clear the blockage and offer to join them. Shortly before the tanker car is cut loose, it is revealed that the noise made by the train during the travel to that point caused a large number of walkers to congregate and pursue them, who managed to catch up to the train at this point. Lee and Omid are able to successfully cut the tanker car free before the walkers get too close. However, during the escape, Omid injures his leg, though he is safely brought aboard the train. As the train nears Savannah, Clementine's walkie-talkie suddenly perks up, with a voice on the other end seemingly aware of the actions of the group so far.
I thought that fucking thing was broken.
So did I. Who the fuck was that? If he's convinced Clementine that he has her parents...
Y'all might want to rethink your plan.
The group has made it to Savannah, and is walking through the streets toward the river. However, an unseen person rings a bell in a church, before the man who has been talking to Clementine on her walkie-talkie warns the group to hide as walkers are approaching. Overrun by walkers, Ben panics and leaves Clementine, causing Chuck to be separated from the group, saving her. Lee, Clementine, Kenny, Ben, Omid and Krista make their way to the backyard of an empty mansion, where they break in by digging up a buried dog and unlocking a pet door with its chipped collar. The house is found to be safe, save for a young walker Kenny finds in the attic, a starved and dehydrated boy too weak to even attack, and who resembles Duck. Lee decides if he or Kenny should kill the walker, and while Lee buries the body with the exhumed dog, he notices someone watching him. Omid's leg begins to worsen, and Kenny wonders out loud if it is time to leave him behind. The next morning, Lee and Kenny head for the waterfront, when another church bell goes off, luring the walkers away. Reaching the docks, Kenny and Lee finds all boats sunken or stripped for parts. Looking for boats, Lee spots a figure climbing down from a building. The duo attempt to sneak up on the stranger, resulting in a struggle between her and Lee, until Clementine appears and stops the fight. The stranger introduces herself as Molly, and explains she rings the bells to draw the walkers away from the areas she scavenges. Molly also warns of Crawford, a paramilitant, survivalist community that upholds itself by adopting a draconian brand of social Darwinism. A misfired shot from Kenny's gun during the fight soon attracts walkers, and forces the group to split up. Lee escapes into the sewers alone, and, after finding Chuck's remains being eaten by walkers, discovers a hidden community of cancer survivors hiding from Crawford's soldiers. He is greeted by Vernon and Bree, the former being a doctor in charge of the group, who at first assumed that Lee is from Crawford, and Lee persuades Vernon that he isn't. To show him how to get back to the house, and to give medical attention to Omid. Back at the house, Lee and Clementine discover a shed containing a boat. The boat requires gasoline and a battery, will not accommodate everyone, and Omid will soon die from an infection without antibiotics. Prompting the group, along with Vernon and Bree, to head for Crawford for the supplies. The player can then choose whether or not to take Clementine along. After realizing that Crawford is overrun by walkers, the group hides in an old school, where they find most of the supplies they need. Getting a battery from a neighboring repair garage, Lee returns to the school and blocks the main doors with a hatchet. Rescuing Vernon and Krista, Lee assists them in opening a locked supply closet. By viewing the recorded medical examinations of Anna Correa, a citizen of Crawford being forced into terminating her pregnancy by her doctor. The group see the doctor input the security code before he is killed by Anna, her actions unintentionally causing the outbreak at Crawford. Watching the optional third tape reveals Molly was a citizen of Crawford, and was trading sexual favors with the doctor in exchange for insulin for her diabetic sister. Lee meets Molly and can confront her about the tape, only for Ben to remove the hatchet from the main doors in order to help Kenny open the armory. A horde of walkers from outside then crash through and Molly tries to hold them off. If Lee fails to save Molly and did not bring Clementine, she is separated from the group and forced to flee, leaving her fate ambiguous. Ben finally admits his deal with the bandits to Kenny back at the motel and the guilt he feels, deeply angering Kenny as he indirectly caused the deaths of Duck and Katja. Bree is devoured by the walkers as the group escapes through the armory door and up the school's bell tower. Ben is suddenly snatched by the reanimated leader of Crawford who had hanged himself in on the bell, but is grabbed by Lee before he falls over the edge. Lee can either let him go or save him. After making it back to the house, Vernon gives Omid the medicine and talks to Lee in private, offering to take Clementine into his own group, where he claims she will be safer. Lee can either agree or disagree with him. Either way, Vernon leaves. If Molly was saved, she decides to leave the group and says goodbye. Tired from the day's events, Lee sits down to watch over Clementine and falls asleep. When he awakes the next morning, he finds Clementine gone and discovers Clementine's hat and walkie-talkie lying outside. While reaching for the latter, Lee is bitten by a walker before killing it. Lee is found by the group and is given the choice of showing or concealing the bite. Determined to rescue Clementine, the player's previous decisions and attitudes towards Kenny, Omid, Krista, and Ben influence who joins Lee in his search. Lee and any of the group members joining him then go searching for Clementine at Vernon's shelter, only to find it empty of supplies and people. Suddenly, Clementine and the man contacting her are heard over the walkie-talkie, revealing that the latter has Clementine and is not Vernon. The man warns Lee to choose his next words carefully, and the episode ends before Lee responds.
Vernon, get out here! There doesn't have to be any trouble here. All I want is the girl. Give her back and nobody needs to get hurt. Clementine, are you all right? Where are you? Vernon, you son of a bitch!
Hello, Lee.
Where have you taken her?
This isn't Vernon, and you should really watch your tone. Clementine's fine, but if I were you,
want from me? Whatever it is, I'll do it. You can let her go.
I want you to never hurt anybody again. This isn't a kidnapping, Lee.
Lee continues to speak with the stranger, who claims he hasn't stolen Clementine, but rescued her from Lee. He collapses from his bite, and chooses to get his infected arm amputated to slow down the rate of infection. Returning to the mansion, the group finds Vernon's crew has stolen the boat, causing an argument. A horde is on its way, so the survivors try to hold the mansion, and are ultimately forced to hide in the attic. Contacted briefly by Clementine, Lee learns she is at the Marsh House Hotel, where her parents were staying. As the group finds a way out, Lee converses with several members and eventually has a talk with Kenny and Krista. When offered alcohol, Krista drinks most of the bottle. Breaking through to a neighboring house, the group comes across a couple who committed suicide together. And Kenny reaffirms a hopeful look on survival and admits to blaming himself for the death of Katja and Duck. The group jumps from a balcony to a rooftop. Everyone jumps from balcony to the roof, but when it's Ben's turn, the balcony collapses and Ben is impaled. Kenny refuses to leave Ben and spares him the pain and shoots him, before he runs off and is assumed to be killed by walkers. With only Omid, Krista, and Lee remaining, the trio reach the coast and attempt to cross rooftops over a sign.
I didn't doubt it. I appreciate it.
How are you feeling?
Good enough.
Krista, you next. Shit!
Shit!
What are you gonna do?
Fuck it. I'm going for it!
Going for it?
What does that mean?
It means I'm already bitten. I just have to push my way through.
What the fuck?
However, Lee is separated from them, and tells them to either return to the train, find a boat, or meet back together to help save Clementine. Fighting through walkers in the street, Lee reaches the Marsh House Hotel, where Lee meets Clementine's captor. Revealing himself as the owner of the station wagon seen at the end of Starve for Help, he explains how Lee's group stealing his supplies resulted in his wife leaving with his daughter, before they were killed by walkers. The man then lists off the players' choices over the course of the game, explaining how Lee's actions make him a monster, and how Clementine is safer with the man. However, as they are talking, Clementine quietly escapes her locked room as the man starts addressing his wife's reanimated head, which he carries around in a bowling bag, giving Lee the option to either attack the man, or allow Clementine to strike and distract him. Apprehending the stranger, Lee can decide whether to kill him or let him reanimate. Reunited with Clementine, the two encounter a walker, who ignores Lee and goes for Clementine. Realizing that the walker blood covering him from his earlier fight is disguising him, Lee guts the walker and covers Clementine in its blood, hiding her smell from the walkers and allowing them to safely exit the hotel and traverse the crowd of walkers. As Clementine spots her undead parents, Lee collapses, forcing Clementine to drag him into an abandoned store. Close to death, Lee explains to Clementine he was bitten and, too weak to walk, instructs her on killing a trapped walker and finding another escape route. Lee imparts advice with Clementine, and, depending on the player's choice, the game ends with a broken-hearted Clementine either shooting Lee, or escaping after he passes away. During the epilogue, a distraught Clementine, mourning over the death of Lee, walks through the countryside and stops to rest on a log. Noticing two silhouetted figures walking in the distance, who also notice her as she stands, the game comes to an end. Thank you for watching. Please check my other recaps, and for more Walking Dead subscribe to the channel. God bless.